What really happened behind closed doors at the royal palace?
Those windows have watched everything. Every argument, every secret, every moment of joy and every moment of absolute despair. Behind those walls, behind those perfectly polished doors and those grand ceremonial staircases, things have happened that the official royal press office will never confirm. Things that the carefully staged photographs were designed to make you forget. Things that explain everything you have ever wondered about the Spanish royal family, why they smile the way they smile, why they stand the way they stand, and why sometimes, just for a fraction of a second, you catch a look on their faces that tells you the real story is nothing like the one being presented. Today, we are going inside. We are walking through those closed doors. We are sitting in those private rooms. And we are going to tell you exactly what has really been happening inside the Royal Palace of Madrid. Stay with me until the very end. Because the last thing we reveal today is something that changes everything you thought you knew about this family. Show channel intro, keep under 5 seconds. Welcome back to Royal Hearts United, where we go beyond the royal wave and the rehearsed smiles to bring you the stories that actually matter. If you are watching this for the first time, hit that subscribe button right now. Because this is exactly the kind of deep royal storytelling we bring you every single week. And you do not want to miss what is coming. Now, let us talk about what is really going on behind those palace doors. Because here is the truth that most royal channels will never tell you. The Spanish royal palace is not just a building. It is not just a backdrop for official photographs and state ceremonies. It is a pressure cooker. A place where extraordinary human beings are expected to behave like perfect symbols, every single day, while dealing with the same fears, the same conflicts, the same heartbreaks and the same complicated family dynamics that every family on earth deals with. Only they must deal with all of it, while the entire world is watching. Today we are going to pull back that curtain in 5 parts. And by the time we are finished, you will understand this family in a way that no official documentary has ever allowed you to. Show images of King Felipe and Queen Letizia at various official events, some warm, some visibly tense. Every great love story has chapters that the public never sees. And the love story between King Felipe and Queen Letizia is no exception. On the surface it appears to be one of the most picture-perfect royal partnerships in Europe. A tall elegant king, a fierce intelligent queen, 2 daughters who appear to adore them both. A family that presents a united front at every public appearance. But behind those closed palace doors, the real story of Felipe and Letizia is far more complicated. Far more human, and in many ways, far more interesting than the official version. Show images of Letizia looking fierce, independent, occasionally frustrated at protocol. Let us start with what the palace has never officially acknowledged but what those who work closely with the royal household have quietly described for years. Queen Letizia does not always agree with the institution she married into. This is not a criticism. It is actually one of the most fascinating things about her. Letizia came from a completely different world. She was a journalist, a woman who built her own career through her own talent and her own relentless work ethic. A woman who was used to asking hard questions and demanding honest answers. And then she married into an institution that has spent 500 years doing exactly the opposite. An institution built on discretion, on silence, on the performance of perfection, regardless of what is actually happening underneath. The tension between who Letizia naturally is, direct, passionate, fiercely independent, and what the monarchy requires her to be, composed, deferential, always perfectly controlled, has created moments behind palace walls that insiders describe as genuinely electric. There have been disagreements about how the girls should be raised. About how much access the media should have. About which traditions should be preserved and which ones belong in the past. There have been moments when Letizia has pushed back, hard, against decisions made by the royal household that she believed were wrong. And there have been moments when Felipe has had to navigate between being a husband who respects his wife's fierce intelligence, and being a king who must sometimes make decisions that the institution demands regardless of personal feelings. That tension, that beautiful difficult tension between 2 very strong people trying to build something real inside a very rigid structure, is one of the defining untold stories of the modern Spanish royal palace. And it is a story that makes their partnership not weaker, but in many ways extraordinarily strong. Because they are still there. Still standing side by side. Still presenting that united front. And anyone who has ever tried to maintain a strong partnership under that kind of pressure knows exactly how much invisible work that takes. Now we need to talk about the ghost. Because no honest account of what really happens behind the doors of the Spanish royal palace can avoid the shadow that Juan Carlos left behind. For those who need a reminder, Juan Carlos was King of Spain for nearly 4 decades. He was beloved. He was credited with steering Spain through its democratic transition. He was seen as the father of modern Spain. And then, slowly and then suddenly, everything collapsed. The corruption investigations. The secret accounts in Switzerland and other foreign jurisdictions. The lavish hunting trips while Spain was suffering through one of its worst economic crises in modern history. The personal scandals that spilled into the public domain in ways the palace could not contain. But here is the part of this story that the official accounts always gloss over. Inside the palace, before any of this became public, there were people who knew. There were conversations that happened behind those closed doors that the Spanish public never heard. Conversations between Felipe and his father about choices that were being made. About risks that were being taken. About the damage that was quietly accumulating beneath the surface of the perfect royal image. What was said in those conversations, nobody outside those rooms will ever know for certain. But we know the result. When the scandal finally broke fully into public view, Felipe moved with a decisiveness that surprised many observers. He publicly renounced his inheritance from his father. He stripped Juan Carlos of his military honorary positions. He made it unmistakably clear that the new Spanish monarchy was not going to protect the old one. Show images of Felipe making formal public statements, looking serious and composed. That decision, made somewhere behind those palace doors, was one of the most consequential choices any European royal has made in decades. Because it was not just a political calculation. It was a son publicly separating himself from his father. It was a king choosing the institution over his own family. Think about what that moment must have felt like in private. Think about what conversations must have happened between Felipe and Letizia about that decision. Between Felipe and his daughters. Between Felipe and the advisors who had dedicated their lives to protecting the Spanish crown. Those conversations happened behind closed doors that the cameras never entered. And the weight of those conversations, the weight of that decision, is something that Felipe carries every single day. You can see it sometimes. In the set of his jaw. In the heaviness behind his eyes at certain moments during official engagements. He did what had to be done. But doing what has to be done is not always the same as doing what is easy. That is the reality behind the closed doors of the palace that the official photographs will never show you. Show images of Princess Leonor and Infanta Sofia together, official events, rare candid moments. Now let us talk about the sisters. Because the relationship between Princess Leonor and Infanta Sofia is one of the most quietly fascinating dynamics inside the Spanish royal palace, and it is one that almost nobody talks about honestly. On the surface they appear close. They appear supportive of each other. And by all accounts they genuinely are. But here is the truth that sits beneath that closeness. These two young women are growing up inside one of the most inherently unequal sibling dynamics imaginable. Show images of Leonor in the spotlight versus Sofia slightly behind, subtle but visible difference in treatment. Leonor is the heir. Everything, the military training, the official engagements, the state ceremonies, the constitutional education, is designed around her. Her face is the one on the magazine covers. Her name is the one that gets mentioned in parliamentary speeches. Her future is the one that the entire institution is oriented toward. And Sofia stands beside her. Always supportive, always composed, always just slightly to the side of the spotlight that her sister was born to occupy. Now, to be absolutely clear, there is no evidence of bitterness or rivalry between these two sisters. Every indication is that their bond is genuine and strong. But inside those palace walls, behind those closed doors, the psychological reality of that dynamic must create its own kind of complexity. What does it feel like to grow up as the second daughter in a family where being born first determines everything? What conversations happen between Sophia and her parents about her own future, about her own identity, about who she is allowed to become outside the shadow of her sister's destiny. Show images of Sophia at events where she shines independently, her own quiet presence. Those conversations happen, they must happen, and they happen behind palace doors that no journalist has ever entered. What we can say, from everything that is visible about Sophia, is that she is navigating this extraordinary situation with a grace and a self-possession that is genuinely remarkable. She is carving her own identity. Quietly, deliberately, without drama. And the relationship between these two sisters, built behind those closed palace doors, may ultimately be one of the most important foundations that the future Queen Leonor will have when she finally takes the throne. Because a queen who has a loyal, grounded, brilliant sister by her side is a queen with something that no protocol can provide and no ceremony can manufacture. That is what is really happening between those two young women behind the closed doors of the palace. And it is far more beautiful than anything the official press releases will ever tell you. Here is something that almost nobody thinks about when they think about the Spanish royal palace. The people who keep it running. Because behind those closed doors, beyond the royal family themselves, there is an entire world of people whose lives are completely intertwined with the institution they serve. The advisors who have dedicated decades to protecting the crown. The protocol officers who carry the weight of 500 years of royal tradition in their heads. The personal staff who see the royal family not as symbols, but as the very human people they actually are. These are people who have been present for moments that history will never record. They were in the room, or just outside it, when difficult conversations happened. When decisions were made that changed the direction of the institution. When the mask of royal perfection slipped for a moment and the real human beings behind it were briefly, vulnerably visible. What they have seen behind those closed palace doors would fill volumes. And here is what the most trusted among them, people who have given decades of loyal service to the Spanish royal family, consistently say when they speak carefully and off the record about what it is really like inside those walls. The family works harder than anyone outside fully appreciates. The preparation that goes into every single public appearance, the briefings, the protocol reviews, the careful management of every detail, is exhausting and relentless. There is almost no such thing as a truly private moment. Even inside the palace, even behind those closed doors, there is always someone whose job requires them to be present. Always another meeting, another briefing, another responsibility that the institution demands. And what the people who serve them say, quietly and with genuine respect, is that the royal family faces this relentless pressure with a professionalism and a dedication that would break most people. That is the secret that the palace walls hold most carefully. Not the scandals, not the conflicts, but the sheer extraordinary effort that it takes, every single day, to be the Spanish royal family. That is what really happens behind those closed doors. Show images of the palace at different times of day, dawn, afternoon, evening, creating a sense of time passing. And now we come to the final chapter. The one we promised you at the beginning. The thing that changes everything you thought you knew. Here it is. The Spanish royal palace, for all its grandeur, for all its history, for all its ceremony and protocol and 500 years of accumulated tradition, is ultimately just a home. A complicated, extraordinary, historically significant, institutionally burdened home. But a home. And inside that home, behind those closed doors, what really happens is the same thing that happens behind the closed doors of every home on earth. People love each other imperfectly. People disappoint each other and forgive each other. People carry wounds from the past into their present. People argue about things that matter and laugh about things that don't. People lie awake at night worrying about their children. People hold each other in the dark when the weight of everything becomes almost too heavy to carry. Show final montage, the royal family in unguarded moments, genuine smiles, real human connection visible beneath the royal protocol. King Felipe worries about whether he is being a good father while also being a good king. And most nights, if we are being honest, he is probably not entirely sure he is succeeding at either. Queen Letizia fights every single day to protect her daughters from a world that wants to consume them, while knowing she cannot protect them from all of it. And that knowledge sits in her eyes in the quiet moments between official engagements. Princess Leonor carries a crown she was born into and never chose, and she carries it with a dignity that speaks to something deep and genuine inside her. But there are moments, caught sometimes in photographs, where you can see the girl underneath the princess. The 19-year-old who just wants to live her life on her own terms. And Infanta Sofia walks beside all of it, graceful and largely unheralded, being perhaps the most quietly extraordinary member of a family that the world is still learning to truly see. That is what really happened behind closed doors at the royal palace. Not a scandal, not a conspiracy, just human beings, remarkable, flawed, courageous human beings, trying their absolute best inside circumstances that none of us will ever fully understand. And perhaps that is the most powerful royal secret of all. Because it means that behind all that marble and ceremony and carefully managed protocol, they are not so different from the rest of us. They are just doing what we are all doing. Trying to hold it together. Trying to do right by the people they love. Trying to be worthy of whatever it is that history has asked of them. Music fades, final logo card. If this video gave you a new and deeper understanding of the Spanish royal family, please hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps this story reach more people who deserve to hear it. Subscribe to Royal Hearts United if you are not already here with us. We tell the stories that other channels are afraid to tell, every single week, and there is so much more coming that you do not want to miss. And leave me a comment right now, tell me this, which member of the Spanish royal family do you think carries the heaviest burden? Is it Felipe, Letizia, Leonor, or Sofia? I read every single comment. I want to know what you think. I will see you in the next one.